Hey, so if we haven't met, my name is Jonathan. Thanks for listening to this today. I'm going to bring Eric, our co host, in just a minute, but I wanted to start this episode out talking directly to you so I could set the stage and make sure you understood where we're coming from in this episode because I know tensions are hot right now and things get miscommunicated really easily. If I'm honest with you, I'm pretty beaten down at this point on Thursday afternoon at 3:24 in the afternoon when 2 days after the election. I knew we'd probably have to make this episode about 2 weeks before the election. I just thought it was pretty clear that Donald Trump was going to win. Um, if this election were just about politics, I'd be feeling a lot different right now. I'm okay if we disagree politically on policy. I've said that multiple times throughout this whole season. I still wouldn't love it because I have different political preferences. But the beauty of our political system in America is there's an opportunity in 2 years to vote in new candidates I may or may not like better. And in 4 years, Donald Trump's done. So we can have policy debates and discussions, and I'm okay with that. But what has worn me down are my experiences with fellow believers before he won and specifically since he won. We mentioned it in a previous episode, the one right before this, but the deification of Donald Trump is just a little too much for me, a lot too much for me. I expected him to win, but what I didn't expect, but I probably should have expected, was the amount of cultural Christian responses I'd see in response to him winning. Wednesday morning became a snooze fest on social media because I just couldn't take seeing all of it and seeing the way that people tied things together with him being the chosen one and God's chosen person to save America and all that. Even the local farm that we buy our meat from put out this long post about how we needed to thank Jesus for Donald Trump being elected because America has been saved. So that's where I'm coming from. Now that Christian nationalism has essentially won the culture war, I'm left asking the question that is the likely title of this episode. What do we do when cultural Christianity wins? Many of you have sent in questions asking the same thing of us, and I appreciate you trusting us with that answer. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do those of us who still love Jesus and want to follow him live in a church culture that overwhelmingly disagrees with how we apply following Jesus to society? How do we stay in environments where the people around us at best think we're wrong and at worst question if we're even true Christians? But before we do that, I do want to welcome in our co-host, Mr. Eric Williams. Eric, how are you? Go ahead and say hey to the people.
I don't know how to follow that. I'm not sure. I never really know until I see this on YouTube if I'm going to be split screen or if it's going to be all full or whatever. But you said a couple words
It'll
in
be
there
split.
that I gave the Jim Halpert, like, look into the camera. In 4 years we'll be done with Trump. Well, maybe, hopefully. So I don't know. I tend to process a lot of this stuff with humor, but I have to admit there is a bit of, like, I don't know if apathy is the right word or numbness or whatever. It just, I don't have a strong emotion right now. Um,
I would love to be numb.
yeah, there's a lot of introspection because I think if we're going to talk about, like, what happened as soon as got the news or as soon as it looked like it wasn't going to be close. Right. Because I think, I was talking to somebody else and I totally agree. I'm glad it wasn't close either way,
Yeah,
because I
I
think
agree with
that would have been worse for our country. Because
I
like
expected
now,
him to win. Like that was the expectation going in for me that he was going to win.
sure. For me, I just, like, there's no accusations of voter fraud anymore. I mean, we can get into that's funny, but, like, I'm just glad that at least there's not that. At least I'm not really worried about where my evangelical Theo bro friends are going to be on January 6th. Like, that's kind of the thing for me, is, like, I'm not worried if they're going to be in a polo and a pitchfork with a torch saying we will not be replaced. Like, at least they're, like, I'm trying to look at the
While
bright
singing "How
side.
Great Is Our God."
Yeah, well, singing how great is our God. Like, I'm glad for that. But yeah, I think my first reaction was, like, especially with the number of, I mean, I don't know. At one point it was 5 million in the popular vote. I don't know what it is now or what it ended up being, but it was like, well, where am I? Like, there's a lot of introspection. What did I miss? And what am I not getting? And, the how come this happened, or how could so and so, how could people see this and still vote for this guy? Like there's a little bit. I think I'm past the shock and more into like, okay, the meme with all of the like the numbers and equations above my head, trying to think through how this happened.
Yeah. One of the ones that I saw Wednesday morning was someone said, if we disagree politically, it's probably because we disagree biblically.
Oof.
And I'm just like, no, making that assumption is like, I I don't get it. And we're going to get into some of this stuff later, but Eric, I was telling you before we got on here, like, just so people can understand a little bit of my mental state right now. My county is came in as the fifth most conservative county in North Carolina. We were 0.04% away from being the third most conservative. People around here are proud of that. We moved up from sixth to fifth. But it's not just that we're conservative, it's that there's a mean spirited about it. So, like, if I sound a little different than normal and a little beaten down, it's because I am. It's just the way things are around here for someone who doesn't fit in the bubble. And within that bubble, I know a lot of you probably haven't gotten into exit poll data, but I'm a dummy and read all of it because I find it interesting. So I just want to show you like some of the things that we found out this election. Christians, this is overall Christian, every mainline, evangelical, whatever, which was 42% of the voters, they went 62% Trump. Catholics, which were 22% of voters, went 56% Trump. I put it in here just because it's interesting. Jewish people, who were 2% of the voters, they went 79% Harris. Some other religion, Muslim, Hindu, whatever it might be, made up 10% of the electorate, and that went 60% Harris. Non-religious, 24% of the voters, went 72% Harris. And here's the one that makes most of you feel similar to me. The white evangelical vote, which made up almost a quarter of all voters, 22%, the white evangelical Christian vote went 81% Trump. So 1% higher than 4 years ago. I think it was only 80% in 2020. I might be wrong on that, but I don't know exactly where you're coming from today. If you're a male or if you're a female, if you have kids or a college degree, but I wanted to show you those numbers just so you could understand the makeup of the culture around us. My guess is if you're listening to this show, you're likely white. It's just the nature of it. The stats show us that 61% of you are female, and most of you are likely between the ages of 23 and 44. Some outliers there, but women make up about a little less than 2/3 of our audience, men the other third. We've got some people above 44 and some people below 23, but not as many. What I'm fairly certain of is most of our audience falls in the 19% of white evangelicals who voted for someone other than Donald Trump. Or you fall into the giant camp of evangelicals who didn't even vote at all. Barna estimated that between around 41 million evangelicals and 32 million mainline Christians were not planning to vote. So there's a whole heck of a lot of people out there who claim to follow Jesus, who did not vote for Donald Trump or did not vote at all, but yet the 81% of voters who did, they're the ones who are controlling culture right now. They're the loud ones on social media and the ones that are going to be loud in your church this weekend. So today we're going to talk about how we respond when cultural Christianity wins, because that's our current reality. If you've been listening this season, we've defined cultural Christianity in all of our episodes. I'll put it in the podcast description so that it's there. But I want people to know those descriptions so that we're all coming from the same place. I wrote this out, and there's really four main ways we respond, and kind of I'm basing this on what I've been going through. I'm sure there's some other things. So we've done episodes like this before, Eric, where I kind of talk and you respond. So this is going to be one of those. Um, the first step I think we have to do, if you're feeling like I'm feeling right now, is lament and grieve. These are two biblical principles. We have an entire book of the Bible called Lamentations. Before you do anything that is to come, before you move on, before you whatever, before you whatever comes next, you need to take the time to feel your feelings. And I say this as someone who spent decades intellectualizing my feelings so that I wouldn't have to feel them. Intellectualizing them and ignoring them is a lot easier, but it's not healthy. You need to feel whatever you need to feel. Give yourself the space and the time to do that. Um, and as part of that, what I want to tell you is while you're feeling whatever it is you need to feel, don't worry if those feelings are justified or not. That comes later. The feelings themselves are real, they need to be felt. Whether or not they are justified can be dealt with later on. But we need to acknowledge that they're there and you need to let yourself feel them.
Yeah, it is weird. I think it's okay. You know, a lot of the reactions that I saw were people that are like, I don't know how to feel, other things like that, you know, and it it's a different feeling than I saw from 2016. You know, 2016, I think you saw the memes, and honestly, you know, thought it was quite funny of people that were like melting down and apoplectic, and they were just hysterical and you know crying in the streets and whatever. And it's like now I think it's just I don't see as much of that, you know, and I see like on social media like black women posting the Pew Research of 93% of black women voters voting for Harris and just going like, I'm so tired, you know, and it's just like,
80% of black men voted for Harris, so there's a 17% difference there.
yeah, but it's just like, yep, you know, or black women and men posting about white women, quote unquote, not showing up, and you know, just like, and I'm seeing people that are posting about how they're going to take BIPOC out of their, you know, don't throw me into that into that group anymore because even among minorities, the coalition that used to be kind of united, not that it's ever a monolith, but like a majority of Hispanic men exit polls said that they voted for Trump, and it's like that's not expected. You know what I mean? So just these things where it's like, what I think that's what put
So
me
your world
into,
has been turned upside down a little
yeah, and
bit for a
that's
lot
where
of
I think
people.
in that bit of like, it's okay to sit there and breathe or like not have to think about it or not have to justify it. And I think you're right. Like I was in the same boat, you know, and um, I responded to you on discount Twitter. You know, on threads, and you know, I said like 20, the high school and 20s version of me would have loved this right now, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and even if it was high school and 20s version of me that didn't get the way that he would have wanted, I would have intellectually justified it somehow. And right now, it's like I'm taking time to more. I don't know if it's lament and grief, but it's more so sitting with my cognitive dissonance and being okay with the fact that there is dissonance. I think too many times we want to close that gap between what we believe to be true and what we actually see, which I can get into why that led to a lot of the voting patterns we have now anyway. But too many of us want to like close that gap with misinformation or justification or even vilifying the other side or anything like that. And it's like, I don't, or stuffing your feelings down and saying, oh no, that doesn't exist. When I think there's something healthy about just sitting in that and going, okay, here's what I believe to be true or what I thought to be true. Here's what I'm seeing. Just let that be. I don't need to figure it out right now. I can just let that settle because sometimes time and distance is what you
Yep.
need before you can start to move through it.
But you got to give yourself the time and the space to feel whatever it is that's going on. Because when we bury stuff down, it gets all dark and moldy and turns into stuff that are super unhealthy. Like we have to give it space to breathe and to have light on it, light shine on it, or shone on it, whatever. Um, but yeah, so that first step is to feel it, and then once you've taken the time to feel those feelings, I think the second response is to do the work to comprehend why you're feeling the way you are and what it is you are grieving or lamenting. Once you've given yourself that space to feel whatever it is you need to feel, then you can do the work to understand why and what. You might realize that your emotional response was an overreaction and what felt true in the moment wasn't completely true. That's legitimate. That happens. Sometimes we feel things and our emotions are big and they're scary, and we take time and space. Okay, that what I was feeling in the moment wasn't actually true, but it still caused a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You might realize your emotional response was the result of a lot of layers of things you hadn't taken the time to deal with. And this election, I hate to use this word because it's been weaponized. This election triggered something in you that made you feel some things, and now it's time to deal with the underlying root. Like,
Mm-hmm.
go watch Shrinking; it'll teach you a lot. But you might also realize that many things you can't even think of right now because you haven't given yourself the space to feel your feelings. You might realize those things are actually what's at the core of this.
Mm-hmm.
And until we give ourselves time and space, we can't get to those things. And if we want to move on in a healthy way and live in whatever culture and society is going to come, you're going to need to be healthy, regardless of if like this. Like I would say this to people who are cheering right now too. Why are you cheering? What are you cheering about? Take the time to figure that out. Like figure out what it is you're cheering so that you can know for sure, because we need to know why we feel the way we think, the way we feel. But whatever the case may be, we cannot understand what we're feeling until we take the time to feel it and then take the time to understand what it is. And we have to do both of those.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there's an interesting piece um, in this as well, because I'm not sure how the world is going to get past this. Um, because like, especially when it comes to men, and again, I can only really speak for men because that's what I am. But like, we also not just kind of societally have a hard time with this feeling piece. And I think you brought it out earlier. It's like, it would be much easier if I didn't give a crap about other people. I think it would be much easier if I could go back to the younger version of me that did not see the struggles and the plight of people that didn't look and sound and act and feel like me. Um, and so it's like I don't want to play the victim card here, but there is a bit of like an attack on this this middle group of empathetic people who are trying to understand what's happening, and our response is like, no, but I want peace, joy, love, faithful, kindness. I want gentleness. I want self-control, not I want power, or I want, I want to go on the attack, or I want to completely avoid, or whatever. And it's just like, I think that's my problem, is like, I don't know necessarily what to do with that, because it doesn't feel like there's a good path forward in our society. There's not a lot of good models for taking something on the chin and continuing to try to be servant minded for it.
Yeah. And I think, but I mean, to me, just acknowledging that is a huge piece of this conversation. Feeling stuck. I feel stuck. I feel powerless. I feel whatever it is. Okay, why do we feel that way? Because X, Y, Z. Okay, just acknowledging that is important. And it gets me to the third response I want to talk about. And this is the personal one for me. We've got to be really honest with ourselves about where we are currently. Like, once we lament in grief and give ourselves the space to feel our feelings, and then we do the work to comprehend why we're feeling that way, we've got to be really honest with where we are in that. Maybe it is like, I don't know how to move forward. I don't know what's going on. I want to be this. The culture around me is telling me I am wrong for that, but my beliefs tell me it's what I'm supposed to be doing. How do I am so confused how to put those two together. That's a real feeling. That's a real place. And it takes some honesty to admit that. And I've always been pretty open with you all. So I'm going to tell you my story of what I realized when I got to this point. Wednesday morning was pretty rough for me. I told you some of the stuff that I saw online, and just I was up till 1:30 the night before. We had some other stuff going on that's like all of it's been playing in this. A lot of it's centered around this election and the way people are treating each other. Leading up to the election, the lyric "Prone to Wonder, Lord, I Feel It" from "Come Thou Fount" had been stuck in my head because I related it to it so much, just based on what was going on around me. Seeing people do some things and act some ways, like "Prone to Wonder, Lord, I Feel It," like that. That described where I was. So then I wake up Wednesday morning and I see all the deification posts, and I was done. I had an appointment about 30 minutes away that morning. And so on the drive, I turned on "Come Thou Fount" while driving because it's what I was feeling, and I wanted to feel that. When the song got to the lyrics, "Here's my heart, oh take and seal it for thy courts above," I could not sing those lines. So I repeated the song and tried again. And every time I got there to that lyric, I could not sing that line. I could sing up to it. I could not sing that line. And that hit me really hard, really, really hard. I'm driving down the highway in rush hour traffic with tears in my eyes because in that moment, I could not tell Jesus, "Here's my heart, take and seal it. Seal it for thy courts above." Like, I want to be able to say that, but whatever I was feeling at the time, I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I'm going to spare you some of the details, but just know that I have been treated different by people I see on a regular basis because it was known I was voting for Kamala Harris. I told you the county stats. I never wanted to move back here. I never wanted to move back to my hometown. I left when I was 18 with no intentions of ever coming back here. But for some reason, years ago, God put this place on my heart. Like, for the longest time, there was no church with modern worship here. Thankfully, that's changed. But there was no church that would empower women to lead in my town. And I've always wanted to be a part of something to bring that here. And so when we moved back in 2019, we moved back thinking we'd be a part of some new church movement in our town so that people who felt like me would have a place they could be a part of. And at every turn, anything we tried to do didn't work. So it's now 5.5 years later, and we're stuck in a town we don't want to be in, around people who are now treating us and our kids differently because of how my wife and I view politics. And we're wondering, what the hell are we doing here? My wife works about 30 minutes from home. She takes a 30-minute drive each direction every day. Our church is 23 minutes from us, and we just cannot be a part of a small group or other things because it's so far away. Like, you have to drive 2 towns over to get to my church. So doing things during the week, we don't know people there because we can't get involved. It's too far. We relate more to people in the city that Nicole works in and where we go to church than we do here. So why are we still here? Did we get it wrong when we thought Jesus wanted us here? Can we leave? If we leave, where do we go? How will it impact our kids? All of these questions are have been swirling around my head the past couple weeks since all of this started. And then I wake up Wednesday morning and it's exponentially feels heavier. But I had to be honest with myself that that's where I am. Like, it's my current reality. And I don't know the answers to those questions currently, but I know there is a weight lifted off of my soul because I took the emotional energy to work through them. And one thing I want to be clear about, I didn't sit down in a prayer closet with a prayer journal and with some formalized prayer to Jesus while I was working through these things. But I have no doubt he was there the entire time. He was with me the entire time as I was processing through this because the Holy Spirit lives inside of me and we have a relationship. He was my counselor. He was my helper. He was sitting across the room even when I was just talking to myself on the therapist's couch. He was there. So as I talk this, don't think you have to go in some formalized fundamentalist prayer when you do this. Like, if you are a Christian, you have the Holy Spirit inside of you. And as you work through these things, the Holy Spirit will be there with you as you work through them. So go into it knowing that. But you got to be honest with yourself because it does lift the weight. You say something, then I'll go back to what I was going to say next. Like, just give people a break from hearing me.
I think, as you were saying that too, and this isn't to take away from anything you said or anything like that, but I think it is worth pointing out, like, all of the struggles that you're talking about with you and your wife and your family about, like, where would we go? Can we go? Should we go? Like, the truth is, you and I both have the means available to even have that conversation. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the underlying piece of this whole thing that I said in our last episode too. It's like, at the end of the day, it's not really going to affect me, or if it does affect me, I'm going to be.
We were texting yesterday joking about if the new taxes thing goes through and tips are untaxed, can we, because you were both business owners. For business owners, there is a owner's pay and distribution that comes out differently. Yep. Can we turn that into a tax? And, like, guys, I'm going to be completely honest with you right now. If I did that, that would be $100,000 of tax-free income that would be added to my, to me every year.
Yep.
It benefits me a ton.
Yeah. And I read posts from people too, where it was like, I read posts from a business owner who's Black. And he was talking about, how he says, honestly, all of the economic policies, I'm going to pay less in taxes, and I'm going to this, and I'm going to, like, it's going to benefit me from an economic standpoint. But my brothers and sisters, especially sisters who may suffer from it. I was talking to my wife, and she was talking to somebody in her life, and they were talking about kind of the reaction to it. And, like, okay, well, think about the changes that happened in 2016, and now what's it going to be now? It's going to be your, it's going to be the people in your life that identify as transgender. It's going to be the people in your life that don't love the same way that you love. It's going to be the women in your life that are seeking medical attention. And, to bring us all back.
Can I pull it back from policy for a second?
Yep.
Just because, like, I want to be honest to what I said, that we can disagree on policy. Like, that's a different conversation for a different place than what we're talking about right now. What I am concerned with, the behavior of the people of the church.
Yeah.
Because yes, that policy you're talking about, Eric, is a big deal, but how we talk to those people has been changed because a hatred spirit has been normalized now. Mm-hmm. Love your neighbor has been questioned.
Yeah.
Calling people, like, okay, I'm going to get on a soapbox.
So hold on before
go ahead. I got to find a picture. I got to find. You know where I'm going. Let me find the picture.
And I want to read something from one of our listeners that posted on Facebook soon too. But before we get off the church tangent, but I would say, like, I think it first struck me. When was Obama elected? Was that 2008?
2008.
So when Obama was running, and that whole period of 8 years, that was where I think the twinges first started, where I saw church people that and how unnecessarily, like, it wasn't I just disagree with him because he's a Democrat or because he's got a different way and different policies of helping, if this was it, I could agree with you. If it was
Yes,
yes, we both agree that we want to serve the people around us and we want to, look out for the poor, the widow, the orphan, the foreigner. I just
but we have different
disagree.
ideas on how to
Yeah,
do that.
yeah, I think it's trickle down economics, and he thinks it's government subsidies. Great, like I think it's free market. He thinks it's the government and the industries, that sort of thing, and like social welfare. That would be fine. But when you start to hear people in church meetings refer to Obama with slurs based on his race, or the church people that would emphasize the Barack Hussein Obama, and it's just like, that's not it, right? That's where I first started hearing it. But then it's like we've talked about before, where the church starts to see this new bastion of hope, which is why we deify Trump, or they deify Trump, is like, he's going to give us the things that we can't do. He's going to be our proxy. He's essentially, like, if you know anything about like the Jews that hold to Sabbath, and are very strict on that, like, they'll have Gentiles that do work for them on days that they can't work. Like he will be our Gentile that can go and do the work that we never could. Like, he's going to take down all the things. He's going to do the dirty work. He's going to be the hitman that we don't, that we can keep our hands clean. And it's like, then it just suddenly becomes more and more integrated until it's like, no, he's the ring of power. Now you are consumed by it. And that's the problem. Let me know when I can read the Facebook post.
Go for it.
Oh, you want to do that now?
Sure.
Okay.
Because
So
I'm getting on a rant when you're done.
okay, so this is from one of our listeners. I'm not necessarily going to name him, but he worked at church with me a while back, and we've been in contact ever since. And he posted this on Facebook yesterday, maybe, so Wednesday. I'm gonna read this. It says, "I'm not surprised." And this is very, like, I feel this. I'm not surprised people voted different than me. I'm not surprised people on both sides are responding hatefully today. Not much surprises me with politics in our country anymore. It's a dirty game that has more to do with money than helping people. What I am surprised by is that the same can be said about the church in America today. A love for power and fortune has corrupted a beautiful institution to its core. Many pastors and churches have replaced a love for Jesus with a love for power, position, and politician. They cry out, quote, "The church hasn't gotten political. Government is just more spiritual," end quote, as though it's somehow a defense for their behavior. Besides, it's just absurdly false gaslighting. The church as a whole has dove headfirst in the political arena without a second thought. Why? Because it protects their best interests. Pandering to the loudest voices with the deepest pockets and keeps the lights. Because pandering to the loudest voices with the deepest pockets keeps the lights on. For many pastors, it keeps the luxury cars in the driveway and it's paid for their tax-free housing allowance. I've said it before and I'll scream it until I'm dead and buried. If a pastor wants to play politics with their influence, it's time to pay taxes. Then he goes on. The church has hitched itself.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah,
Can I
go
interrupt?
for it.
I have a standing disc golf game on Thursday with some friends.
Mm-hmm.
We played today at a church about 30 minutes from me. They have a long entryway. There's only way to get to this church is down this long quarter-mile road. There were 2 political signs on that road today, Thursday, 2 days later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long they've been up, but that church at the very top of the entrance and going down the road, they had a state senate sign in their driveway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who the candidate is. That does not belong on church property. That is not the job of the church.
And even, I would say, even the other side. So I don't know if you saw this from longtime friend of the show, Mark Driscoll, and his Mars Hill, or what is it now? I forget what the church is. Whatever the church is in Arizona. So he started something a month or two ago where they put this big old sign that said, like, Jesus for president. They put it in a public area, like on a place where you can't have a political sign, right? You can't have signage of any type. And they got a letter from the city of Glendale or whatever it was that said you need to remove your sign, and cited, like, it doesn't matter what it has on it, like, the sign is not allowed to go there. And so what did he do? Right? He used it as a grift, and he used it to stoke all this stuff about how we are going to, government can't hold us down, and the liberals in the government are trying to make us,
Even though
deny
he was breaking the
Jesus.
law.
Yeah, they're trying to make us deny Jesus. No, you moron. They're trying to tell you that you can't, like, a sign law is a sign law. It doesn't matter what it says on that. It could say, dog,
Hey guys,
puppies and kids.
if you really want something fun, send Eric a message on social at EricW712 and have him show you the pictures from the sign war in his HOA over the past month, because it's the funniest thing in the world. It will bring all types of levity to this conversation right now. We don't have time to get into it, but if you want to hear about a sign war, send him a message on social,
Yeah.
because it's worth it for him to share it with you. But go ahead.
So that goes back to the power thing and the church thing, is how it's like we've now co-opted all this stuff, and so you knew exactly what you were doing, Trinity Church or Mark Driscoll or whatever. Like, you knew what you were doing. You put Jesus for president because you're like, I'm going to dare them to make them why? Because now it's popular. Now you can rile up your base. Now you can stoke more of this us versus them with government. So that brings us to Trump, and I'm going to continue this post here. It says the church has hitched itself to a man they claim stands on Christian values when, in fact, he does not display a single fruit of the Spirit. Hell, he can't even cite a passage of Scripture correctly. Vote for him and support him. That's your right. But stop trying to make it about righteousness when we know that's a sham. They've replaced a spiritual savior with a political one. I'm not starting a church. I'm not starting some new evangelical page for you to deconstruct alongside, but here's where I'm at. I'm done accepting the church as it is. The church I was born into, the church I love, the church I fought and worked for 3 decades. When I look at our country, I don't see the church I fell in love with. I still see the same Jesus I fell in love with, perhaps more clearly than ever. But this is not the church he called us to be. If your response to your side winning an election was to proclaim, God is in control, Christ is on the throne, then you're part of the problem. Because while your faith is accurate and strong, God is indeed in control. You're the only one. You're only using it as a battering ram to tear down the world you're called to love, serve, and lead. You're eliminating your ability to be the hands and feet of Jesus to half of your country because you're worshiping a politician instead of Jesus. A lot of you will say, well, not me, not my pastor, not my church. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's an exceptionally good chance you're wrong. I've been to a lot of churches and conferences. Even the best churches I've been a part of have some tragic characteristics that feed the beast of Christian nationalism. And he ends this by saying this. If you find yourself similarly disappointed and disconnected from the church, but are longing for community, message me. If you feel lost or hopeless today for any reason, message me. If you feel unsafe, unloved, or like you don't matter, message to me. I see you. I love you. Jesus loves you. And there's something for us out there that we're going to fight for, and we're going to find it together. Soapbox.
In 2010, an atheist in my town, he's a veteran, just so happens to be an atheist. There's a big Veterans Memorial monument in our town, has the flags of all the military branches and a Christian flag. He went to the city and asked the city to take the Christian flag down because it does not represent him, and a Veterans Memorial should represent all veterans. To me, that's a pretty solid case. Hey, you don't have Buddhist flags, you don't have Muslim flags. A Christian flag should not go here because it does not represent my brothers and sisters who I fought and served with. Sure. City said no. So the atheist veteran sued the city. The city lost about $500,000 in the lawsuit. He didn't take a dime. He donated all the money. He did not care about the money that he won. But the flag had to come down. In response to this, the IFB, Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Churches in the town, organized a march from the big church to the monument, which was about, let's say, a mile. And so they marched down Main Street, down this other road, carrying Christian flags and crosses. Like, if you look at the picture, you could put some hoods on and it would look very similar. It was a gigantic deal. Everyone in town had Christian flags in their yards. It got national news. If you want something today, Google King, North Carolina Christian flag 2010 and some stuff's going to come up. I tell you all that because right outside of town, about a quarter mile away from So my town's what used to be a sundown town. There used to be a sign right next to the Welcome to King sign that said, N-word better not get caught here after dark, through the 70s. So about a quarter mile from that, on private property, not city property, was a 8-foot wide by 4-foot tall vinyl banner that said, "Attention Harris voters, please leave your sign in your yard so the illegals know where to stop for food and shelter, Trump 2024." Not a single word was posted about that saying it was unchristian. Not a single thing was said. That's the type of language towards other people that has been normalized and accepted as okay. That is anti-gospel, anti-Jesus.
That
We are
is the
told in the Bible
real
that
quick.
once they're here, no, this is my soapbox. We are told once they are here, we are to treat them as we would treat anyone else. So only the Harris voters are going to give food and shelter? No. Where the hell are the Christians? Where's the church? We can debate all day long about border policies. I think we need stronger ones. But once they're here, we're going to disparage them because we don't like the way. We're not talking about government helping them. We're talking about the citizens, the Christians. Are you abdicating your responsibility from the Bible to help those who came here illegally just because they came here illegally? I'm okay if you don't want them to have government assistance. That's okay. But are you going to other them and degrade them and choose not to help them while claiming Jesus at the same time? No, get out of here. I don't want to be a part of that. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you talk about that, it just like, it is all of the Christians holding the stones. And I mean, not even in this situation, but all of the Christians holding the stones surrounding the woman caught in adultery. I know you're going to be like, the biblical guys are going to be like, they weren't Christians, they were the Pharisees. But that's what you're doing.
They were the
You're
religious
like,
leaders of the time.
You are watching someone or a group of people that are like persecuting and being a-holes, and you're standing there either with your stone in your hand or being very willing to watch someone get stoned for that. And it's like, man, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to stand aside. I don't want to do that. Those are
That's why I can't sing "Here's My Heart, Oh Take and Seal It." I've tried. Like, I've been honest, but I still can't get there. But for those of you listening who are in the same spot as me, who probably couldn't sing that right now too, I'm going to get off my soapbox. I'm going to tell you what I have come to understand through this. Jesus understands why I can't sing it. He knows I want to sing it and understands why I can't. I'll go as far as to say he's okay that I can't sing it right now. And the beauty of it is, I know he's with me even though I can't say that. And I know he's going to stay with me however long it takes until I can one day sing that again, because I don't want to give up trying to be able to sing that line one day again. And so getting back to our responses, because we've been talking a long time at this point, like, it took some time to get there, but I had to be honest with myself. And that honesty not only lifted the weight of my spirit off, but it also comforted me because I know Jesus is there. So you have to do those three things we've been talking about. But there's a fourth piece of this as well. And this might be the hardest one because it's the most uncomfortable. You have to begin to understand you're going to be the minority in nearly every Christian space you're in. That's just the reality of our situation. 81% of white evangelicals voted for Donald Trump after he was convicted for 30-something felonies and sexual assault. The majority of the Christians you're going to be around, whether in church, in culture in general, on social media, whatever it is, They see a core piece of our culture differently than you and I do. And that, my friends, is really, really hard. So, what you have to do once you take time to lament and grieve, once you find out why it is you're feeling the way you're feeling, and once you're really honest with yourself, you're going to have to ask yourself how you're going to handle being in those spaces. The Bible doesn't say that we have to be a part of the 501c3 nonprofit organization known as the Church in America, but it does say we have to regularly gather with other believers. The Christian faith is not an individual faith. It is not to be practiced on our own. And you might get lucky to find a group of Christians who see the world the same way you do. If you find that, hold on to it. I am jealous of you. I wish I could do that myself. But for most of us, we're not going to be able to find that. So those of you who are in the 19% who didn't vote for him, you're going to have to get used to being the minority anywhere you go. And that is an unknown and uncomfortable experience for any of the, for most of the people listening to this, because we've gone 30 to 50 years as the cultural majority everywhere we've been. Unlike, if you're a white person in America, unless you live in Atlanta or Baltimore, you've probably been the majority culturally everywhere you've gone. Eric, I know you're in a minority majority state, so you've got more experience in this than I do. But once you grieve your feelings, once you determine what it is you're actually feeling, and once you're honest with yourself and where you are currently, the way you move forward is coming to grips with the fact that you are truly an exile in a hostile environment, and determine if you are willing to continue in that. And that's going to take some honesty with yourself. You're going to have to work through that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we've talked about in the past that looking to, there's a lot of reasons why social media sucks. And, a lot of reasons why you probably either need to use the snooze button or the mute button or the block button or the unfriend button in a lot of your social media areas. Just like where you said is like, you might get lucky enough to find a group of Christians who see the world the way you do. Well, I think that we're starting to see, at least my eyes are opening to more of the experience of the people that have not been in the majority in spaces where why do some of these issues that when people say, well, I want to go back to the 50s or try that in a small town or whatever, it's like, well, the issue was like there was never the ability for the only person who was othered in your small town couldn't find somebody that shared their beliefs or shared their mindset. But now that we have social media, now that we can connect in this way, it's like you start to see somebody that's like, oh, I'm not the only one that whatever identifies this way, or even is a fan of something else, right? Or whatever. So there is a bit where you can find the voices that you can agree with, and you can find the voices that are going to support you. And I think that that's okay. There's been a lot of learning that I've been doing from pastors that are in cities different than me, but man, they post some really good and insightful things that make me feel like this is being read into the actions of Jesus. What would Jesus do? Not what scripture justifies my actions, but put yourself in a situation where Jesus faced a similar type of situation. What did he do? And it's like, okay, that's a little different. So that's where for you and me, I think over the years, I have not been mad at God for a while, right? I think my grief falls into a different way, whereas like I am very disappointed with his followers and his creation.
That's where I was going to go.
You know,
Disappointment's my feeling.
that sort of disappointment. It's like, yeah, there is a bit of squishiness and like, well, does he control all things? Does he make all things for the good of those who, and all this kind of stuff where it's like, but there's also free will, but there's also predestination of thing, all of that. But it's like, I'm not at the point where I'm putting that on God, but I really think what you're talking about, that 501c3 nonprofit organization with the hierarchical, internal, unchecked structure of church, my eyes are wide open for that now.
Here's what I would tell you. I'm not giving up on the local church yet. I hope I don't ever. But if I hadn't already committed to serving our kids' ministry on Sunday, I wouldn't be going this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I don't trust my pastor. I trust my pastor. He's probably listening to this at some point. Half our staff is probably listening to this. But I just don't want to be around the people. And here's the thing. I don't even know that our church is that way. I think we're one of the good ones. I've never had a bad experience with any of this Christian nationalist stuff at my church. That's why we drive 23 minutes to get there. But because of the culture, the Christian culture around me, it has bled into the way I look at others as well. And I freaking hate that. But it's the reality of the situation. Because I know statistically, there's a good majority of that room who looks at me and thinks something about me, even though they don't know me.
Yep.
Is that a real thing? I hope it's not, but that's what it feels like. And so if you need to take a week or two off of church, I get it. Like, I would have been right there with you, but I'm going to be in my kid's shirt telling people good morning and smiling at them at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning because that was my commitment.
Yeah. Before we close here, as we close, I just want to bring up one other thing that kind of how it feels. I know that you and I are both sports guys, coaches.
Mm-hmm.
We have sports management backgrounds. You're getting something off your shelf. Oh, trophy. Oh, look at that trophy. Yeah, that's nice. If you're on, that's the reason why you need to watch us on YouTube.
My
Yeah.
10-year-old rec league tournament trophy that we won at the end of the season.
Amazing. Yeah.
Sorry. I just got to
okay.
laugh. I got to smile. I got to find something
right.
to smile about.
So I'm thinking about this. Think about the scenes that you see, especially in like kids sports, not professional sports, but kids sports. When there is a win or a loss or one of those moments where pitcher throws it and batter hits a home run, walk off, everybody's cheering, pitcher is just completely destroyed. And you see those moments where the kids that get it, they're going over and they're consoling the pitcher. They're not rubbing it in his face. They're not bat flipping. They're not doing that kind of stuff. Now, what I hate is on the front end is that we've turned politics in the church into a win-loss proposition where Trump gets elected. Now conservative evangelicals are the winner and need to rub it in the face of the loser. When in reality, I think you can have enough. It takes emotional intelligence to know that even if something good happens for you, if your team wins, but it's still not really a win when you see someone else suffering. And so, do you have to like forfeit and go, oh, well, no, we're going to forfeit so everybody plays, everybody wins? No, I'm not saying everybody's going to get a participation trophy. But in your wins, be gracious, right? In your wins, act like you've been there before. In your wins,
In
you
your
don't need to
losses,
go.
be gracious.
Yeah, in your losses, be gracious. You don't have to say, oh, it was rigged. When I lose, it's easy to go, oh, it was rigged, or oh, they did this, or oh, the refs, or oh, the whatever. Stop. And when you win, look around and go, okay, I won. I don't need to rub it in. I don't need to post the red wave emoji on my social media. When I lose, I don't need to post the black box in my profile picture. Like, I don't need to do that stuff. What I can do is look at the humanity in the person across from me. And so, same thing. When you show up at church this weekend, if you choose to show up at church this weekend, it's like, I love what you said. And I don't think you meant to say it this way, but it's like, I'm going to have my kid shirt on. And I'm going to tell people Jesus loves them. Because you look across the aisle, you look across the sideline, you look at the mound, and you're going, it doesn't matter if I got struck out or if I hit the home run. I'm going to look at you. I'm going to say, good game. And I'm going to see the humanity in you. And I'm going to go, great. Where are we going to get beers after this? Or Dr. Pepper's in your case.
Here's where I'm going to close because we're
As we
coming on
close.
an hour now.
Yeah. Third close.
When well, in our notes, we have close 1 and close 2.
Bring in the closer.
I'm a lefty. Thank you, though. When I shared the Come Thou Fount story with a friend of mine, I'm going to read you part of his response. He said, the taking of your heart implies the heart is broken when you hand it over. Seal it for your courts above isn't I'll fly away theology. It's missional resolve for the here and now. And as I've thought through this, I'm personally not yet ready to hand the broken heart back over to Jesus. My lived experience is every time I hand my heart to Jesus, people who claim to follow him have ripped it out or have tried to rip it out of his hands and have broken it as he's tried to hold it. So I trust Jesus with my heart, but right now it feels like it's safer being hidden than being back in his hands. And that's just my honest reality. I hope to one day get to where I can hand it back over to him, and I'm 98.2% sure that I will. But that day ain't today. It's just not. So I think he's okay with that. But I'm gonna hide it a little bit for a little while. Um, and if I'm honest on the other end as well, I don't have the missional resolve for the here and now, right now. I'm broken down and beaten up by how fellow believers have treated my family. Um, I'm not walking away from following Jesus, but I'm going to retreat to the back of the pack a little bit. I have thought about killing off this podcast 1,000 times over the last 6 weeks. Like, I still don't know if I have it in me to keep going, but I'm going to find it because so many of you have sent messages saying how helpful it's been to you, which I appreciate more than you know. It's why we're doing this episode. People ask for it. But I am broken down and beaten up right now, trying to follow Jesus the way that I feel like I should. And one day I'll probably find that missional resolve because I'm stubborn and because I do trust Jesus and I know he's there with me in this mess. But it's not today. But here's what I know to be true. And this is the final close, the third close. All the band is on stage now, not just the keyboard player. The guitar player he's turned his pedal board up. He's good to go. He tuned. He's about to play Swells and Wells. Um, but here's what I know to be true. Jesus is okay with how I feel right now. He understands how I feel right now. He's willing to give me the space I need right now, but he's never going to stop pursuing me either. And I don't know where you stand today. I don't know what it is you are grieving. I don't know why you're grieving or the realities surrounding your situation, but Jesus does. And he's going to be with you through it all. And if you get anything out of today, I hope it's that it's okay to feel whatever you need to feel right now. But once you're done feeling it, you need to figure out why you're feeling it. And you need to be really honest about where you currently stand. And through all of that, I hope you know the real Jesus, that Jewish, we'll call him carpenter because I don't want to get into that conversation right now, but that the Jewish stonemason, little 5'6", curly hair, beard, that dude nailed to a cross, 9-inch stone, 9-inch railroad spikes through his wrists.
White guy,
6'4", blue eyes, looks like Joel Houston. No, the real one, the
Rizzler. He rizzed for your sins, baby.
Unlearning youth group, baby. That guy's with you, and that guy understands, and he's still in control. He's still going to be in control no matter what happens next. And I know we don't want to hear that right now because, God, it feels so freaking patronizing. But it's the truth. And at the end of the day, that's what we need to hear. So, as we leave today,
Mm,
as you walk out the doors, I'm not
mm.
even doing that. But as you turn this off, as you turn your car off in your garage, as you get out of the shower, wherever you're listening, which is still weird, you guys listen to us in the shower. Whatever it is, you are loved. Your reality may suck, but you are not alone. That's it for today. We'll talk to you soon.
Be nice to somebody. I'm serious. Be nice to somebody. And I want you to know, like, if I had one more soapbox, I want people to know it's not about Trump. This isn't Trump versus Kamala. This is Christians being a-holes. Stop it. That's it. Stop it. Stop being an a-hole. Be kind to somebody. Be a helper. Be a servant. Be like Jesus, not your version of what you want to justify.
Okay, bye.